Hey, what up, everybody? My name is Justin,
And I'm Eric.
and this is Paratruth Radio, broadcasting right here on Blog Talk Radio at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And tonight we will be talking about vampires. But just to get a little info out for you guys, we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter. If you want to hit the like button and the follow button. You can also catch us in our chat room during our live shows right at the bottom of your screen there. You can ask us questions or just make a comment, give us any info that we might miss. You can also call in our call line, which is 914-205-5558. And worst case scenario, you can also hit us up at paratruthradio@gmail.com. So apparently Eric's been having a rough week because his mouse died out, so we're doing it old school on a telephone.
Yeah. So sorry if it all sounds like crap.
Well, it's better than trying to do it by myself, just reading facts. And for those of you that are avid followers of the show, we're going to be having a live random fact of the day today. So this is the first ever live random fact. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Yeah, it should be. Hopefully it goes smoothly. We all know how often I mess up things on the show. So.
Well, I mean, since it's a short one, I think we'll be okay. So
yeah.
All right, so vampires. Most people know vampires are. I mean, vampires have been glorified in movies since I'd say at least the 90s. For those of you that don't know what vampires are, Google it for a second while we're telling you what it is. Vampires date back. I was honestly shocked to see this. The legend dates back a millennia. It dates back to Mesopotamia. There's legends from Hebrew, ancient Greek, and Romans, and maybe even further than that. But that's only written mythology that they're dating this from. So, for those of you that don't know what a vampire is a living corpse, so to speak, in mythology, that comes back from the dead to prey on the living for their blood or their life force, as you will. Me and Eric kind of touched a little bit on this when we were talking about the chupacabra, of course, which is a similar creature that feeds on the blood of goats. I don't know. The legend is a little bit far-fetched compared to what we know today of what vampires are, which are humans that lead a life as a vampire. There is such a thing as a quote-unquote psychic vampire that will feed off of your energy, just kind of draining you throughout the day, not your blood, but your energy or your life force that way. But there are ones that actually drink blood as well. As Eric put last week, I believe he said that there's bars even in Cleveland that are vampire bars, correct?
Right.
So it's not hard to find. Of course, here in Bismarck, North Dakota, it might not be as common, but in the big cities, New York, Cleveland, dare I say Detroit, I'm sure Los Angeles, they just have these bars where you choose your, what are they called? When they're choosing their the person they want to swap blood with, what is that called? Not their donor?
No, not donor. I don't know what that'd be called.
I'm not sure either. We'll have to look that up during break because I'm not sure.
We're always so prepared.
Well, seeing as we know this subject quite well without doing any research, it's just one of those things that you have to look up quick while we're doing the show. Now, for those of you, again, vampires also have fangs in mythology. Now, we're not talking about the glittering vampires from Twilight. We're talking about research that I looked up says that actually even the pale vampires that we know from not even mythology, but what is it called? From stories and movies is different than the vampire from folklore. Vampires from folklore were actually usually ruddy or dark, markedly different from the pale vampire today. They looked more corpse-like, and a lot of them would look bloated from mythology, and that was due to feeding on blood. A lot of them did not have fangs in folklore. Legend speaks of fangs where it kind of evolved a little bit. A lot of the descriptions of how this folklore came about was back in the day, we really didn't know a whole lot about the decomposition of a body. So the body would bloat, the blood would seep out of the mouth and the eyes and the nose. And to people of that era, it seemed like these things were coming back from the dead and feeding off of blood, and instead of just the natural secretions of the body once the body dies. It has also been linked to what's the name of the disease? I want to say pyphyria.
I never heard of it.
Well, it was supposedly pyphyria or pyphyria is a disease where there's a nutritional discrepancy of iron in the blood, and it was believed that there was people that would drink human blood to revamp their system and take away the symptoms of pyphyria. But it actually says in the research that that's not true at all. That's not how it's alleviated. There's a lot to vampires. Let's go over a little bit of what you know as far as the legends are concerned.
Well, one legend in particular, as it kind of comes along my particular area, is that some people were visited by Satan, and he'd give them, it'd either be considered a curse or a gift, in which he would give them the ability to become faster, stronger, smarter in a sense, but in order to do so, they would have to live off of blood, and that blood would be the strength that they received that would make them so much faster and stronger. And many people actually believe that, even today, that if you were to drink another person's blood, it will have some kind of physical and mental effect on you, making you more superior over other people, which is really weird when you think about it and doesn't make a lot of sense at all. But they find or believe that it has a certain type of health benefits, I guess. Just really gross.
Well,
it's a little nasty.
When we were doing the Chupacabra story, and how we had said that it would, we don't know how human beings would do that. Shelley had said actually African tribes will drink the blood of a cow for sustenance because of drought and stuff like that, where their crops aren't growing, so they need sustenance from something, and they don't want to slaughter the cow, so they just cut an opening and drink the blood instead of actually slaughtering it.
That's
Not to mention,
disgusting.
yeah, and they also consider cows sacred, so that's why they wouldn't slaughter it. So, and one legend that kind of falls into your area too is legends from the Mesopotamians, Hebrews, ancient Greeks, and Romans. There was tales of demons and spirits that would do this instead of walking corpses. So kind of along those same lines of a human asking Lucifer for that gift or that curse, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. I mean, like, the legends from ancient times compared to, like, biblical demons as far as you've seen don't feed on the blood of humans or anything like that, right?
Well, no, it's never covered within the Bible itself. And I haven't read much of the Apocrypha, only because those Bibles were specifically restricted by the Hebrews, by
right,
the Jews themselves, stating that those particular books were not given to us by God, unlike the books within the Bible. But I know there's a number of things within the Apocrypha that people wrote about, different legends or beliefs that they had in regards to demons and the fall and so on and so forth. But just to say that something isn't in the Bible in regards to demons being capable of, being vampiric in nature and drinking blood and so on and so forth, doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't. The Bible contains a history that is important. The redemption of God's people, the sacrifice, but it doesn't go into the full background and legends per se, the things that may or may not be real, because the Bible's only talking about things that are 100% real. So there's a number of different historical books that you can look into for the Hebrews, or even through Mesopotamia and so on and so forth, that may have similarities. And, I mean, in the end, you'd have to find any evidence that would help support the legends that they claim it to be real. But yeah, I mean, in regards to Scripture, though, I have never seen anything about demons being able to drink blood. But, like we mentioned, it was last week or the week before, it might have been, I can't remember when it was, but Genesis 6, chapter 6, it talks about those sons of God coming down and marrying women and
it was last week.
The Nephilim. That was last week. So, in the sons of God in that book is the same term or word that was used in Job, referring to sons of God. And sons of God in Job was referring to angels. So it's safe to believe that it were angels that came to earth, or were already on the earth if they were cast out by that point, which they were, who ended up marrying the women. So, of course, they have some kind of ability to become physical entities as opposed to just spiritual ones. They're able to manifest that type of form. So if they were able to do that, who's to say that there's not some that have been vampiric in nature? I mean, obviously, any legend we come across, whether it's vampires or werewolves or et cetera, comes from some type of truth in some way. And, of course, I think, personally, demons are more than capable of bringing such legends to life. So,
well, I mean, look at what some people that are going through demon possession or oppression go through with scratches on the arm, which, if it's possession, a lot of times they're causing that themselves because the demon is causing them to do that, right?
Well, yeah. When it's demonic use of possession?
Yeah, possession or oppression, usually.
when it comes to possession, I think a lot of people, they get scared, but they have to understand that possession affects about 1% of the entire population around the world. So it's very, 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 very rare. And typically you see them in third world countries. So in the U.S., it's not common at all to find someone who's being possessed. But the idea of possession is this demonic spirit taking over, in a sense, the body of some person. Now that person has control sometimes, but when the demon wants to come forth to take control, it's almost as if he's able to either, I'm trying to think of saying, able to turn out, I guess, the presence of the person, if that makes sense. I can't think of another way to word it.
It basically,
so, I guess,
puts them on the back burner, so to speak, and takes over.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, as far as I know and as far as I've learned, demons cannot possess a dead body because they need to possess the soul, which means the body has to be alive, meaning the person's soul has to be within them in order for a demon to take possession. You have to remember that the demon...
What I'm saying is, like, they can affect us physically while we're alive, like by causing scratch marks on our skin, whether that's through possession or oppression, where a demon is just around causing mischief, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, in regards to possession, it's going to be much more physical in that sense. I mean, you're going to be able to use knives and so on and so forth, where in oppression, they're using their claws or whatever they have to scratch you. I mean, you're not going to see a spirit coming at you with a knife, typically. Right. I've never really heard of such a thing.
I would be really freaked out if a spirit came out with a knife.
Yeah.
In all the investigations that we've done, not once has it ever happened like that. Oh, so thank God for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, folks, we're going to do our live random fact and a quick commercial, and we'll be right back.
Now, Eric's random fact of the day.
People all around the world are allergic to foods. Some of those allergies can make people very sick or even kill them. However, did you know that there are only 8 types of foods within the United States that affect 90% of people? These foods are milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, peanuts, wheat, and the 8th one is soy.
This was Eric's random fact of the day.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. 1, 2, snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? ? We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Are you ready? Are you prepared? What if some cataclysmic event shook your every foundation? Would you and your family know what to do? My name is Jacqueline Druga, host of the Apocalypse Nana Show. Join me every Thursday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. PrepperBroadcasting.com. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're there for your survival needs.
This is Bill Hall, author of the book, The World's Most Haunted House, and you're listening to Paratruth Radio.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And we just want to encourage you guys, if you're listening to the show live tonight, just go down to the bottom of your screen, hop in our chat room. We have Supernatural Radio with us in our chat today. And he made, or she, I'm not sure, made a comment that says, unless it's Annabelle, referring to the knife comment that we made earlier. You know who Annabelle is, right?
Yeah, is that in regards to the new movie?
Well, it's in regards to the new movie, but the doll that was possessed or whatever by...
that it's based off of?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know Annabelle. I know of another one, another doll, a male doll.
So, well, and even in the real Annabelle case, Robert, I don't think it wielded a knife, but I could be wrong. I'll have to look up the legend. So we're talking about vampires this episode. One of the legends, as we were just talking about, is from Mesopotamians, ancient Greek and Romans, of demons and spirits that were basically kind of the precursor for modern day vampires, that would feed on human beings, whether that was life energy or blood. The legends kind of intermix those two words, life energy, blood. That's how the whole quote-unquote psychic vampire stories came about, was because they're saying that you don't need to feed off of the blood of a human to indulge in their life force, just their energy. And like Eric has gone into a little bit with demonic oppression and possession, physical manifestations of these beings being aggressive towards humans has been documented and been around. So we'll touch base a little bit on the folkloric vampire. How a vampire is usually made, quote unquote, or created, is by being bitten from another vampire. Some legends say that they have to drink vampiric blood after being bitten. Some of those are more recent stories and movies, but it usually has to do with a corpse coming back from the dead after being bitten and buried. They usually come back, and from the little bit of research that I did before the show, they usually go back to what they know. So they go back to their family and their loved ones and their friends to either feed on them or cause mischief, because now they're undead, so they can do whatever they want and nothing's going to happen to them. Some of the ways of identifying a vampire are kind of obvious. If you go by folklore, they're bloated creatures, sometimes grayish or dark skinned, almost like black and blue, and bloated. Other legends are of the palish white vampire with fangs. Most of them will probably try and drink your blood. Pretty sure that's probably a given. There is some legends that say that corpses that don't show any signs or little signs of decomposition, which nowadays most corpses are embalmed, so that kind of eliminates that part of it. Now, Eric, do you know all the stuff that ward off vampires?
Stuff that ward them off?
Or at least some of them?
I probably know some of them.
What are the ones that you know?
All right. Well, let's go with the most common, of course, which you've seen through legend, is garlic.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first
Which
and foremost.
Italians love, by the way, so we don't have any problems.
Yeah, that's the only place in the entire world that vampires do not exist.
Because they have the
crosses
and garlic and.
Yes. Another one is crosses, crucifix. That wards them off. Holy water, surprisingly. That's, I mean, which is weird, but I guess through legend, people have considered vampires to be demonic in nature.
Right.
Almost a
or
physical
going
form of a
against
demon.
God, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so holy water, that's the third one. All right, now you're going to have to start helping me out.
Well, these aren't necessarily ones that ward vampires off, but vampires can only be invited into a home before they can enter. So you don't want to invite a vampire into your home. Some of the other signs that I forgot to mention is they don't have a reflection. They don't have shadow. Let's see if there's any other. Oh, they can't enter onto holy ground. So a church, a cemetery, they cannot enter holy ground because it's been blessed.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, I mean, there's a couple things, too, to prevent vampires from rising up out of the graves. One, which is probably the most simple, is to place a rose on top of the casket. It's believed that if there's a rose on top of the casket that they're living in, or the coffin they're living in, they wouldn't be able to open the coffin door. If that makes any sense to you whatsoever, because it doesn't to me.
I've never heard that legend. I wonder what their basis on that is.
Yeah. Another one, this is one where people have actually, I'm sure you know, everyone out there listening, I mean, if you're into the paranormal, I'm sure you know, there have been a number of vampire grave sites dug up. And not on purpose, but by accident, they're digging up a grave for whatever reason, and they realize, oh, this was an old vampire grave. Reason being is two things happen. When someone was believed to be a vampire and they were killed, they would chop the head off and place the head at the feet.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the vampire awoke, it would be unable to reach down and grab its head. Hence, it would never come up to kill anyone. The other thing that they would do is place a brick in the mouth of these vampires. So there have been grave sites that have been dug up where they'll find these corpses or just the bones with a brick shoved halfway through half a brick shoved into their mouth. And this would prevent them from being able to close down on a victim because they'd have no way to get the brick out of their mouth. So those are some very interesting ways that people in the past have prevented vampires from rising and killing again.
Yeah, I was going to mention that because there was actually just a ancient gravesite dug up not too long ago, I'd say within the past couple of weeks, that dates back prior to the birth of Christ, that had a brick shoved in its mouth, or what their definition of a brick was back then. So, that was really interesting to me because I didn't realize how far back the vampire legend went. So, some of the other things that go with the vampire, what were some of the names that other cultures call them? And I'm sorry if I mispronounce these words, Vrykolakas from Greece, and the Strigoi in Romania, which is odd because Romania is where the legend of Dracula or Dracul comes from. So Strigoi must be a ancient name for it, because usually they use vampire nowadays. And I don't know if you saw the commercials for the new Dracula movie, but I was really hoping. Yeah, I was hoping that was more of a historical movie than what they're making it out to be.
No.
Yeah,
no,
they're
it's
making
Hollywood.
Yeah, they're making it out to be kind of what you said, where Dracula pledged his soul to the devil in order to destroy his enemies.
Yeah.
And that's how he became a vampire.
Right. Which is very interesting, I guess, side of the story.
Right.
And actually, I'm going to get back to that in a moment, but I do want to toss out two other names in regards to vampires.
Okay.
One is the Uyri. I think it's spelled Uyri. There might be another letter before the Y. I can't remember exactly. But that was a god of some sort that was worshipped by pagans that would drink blood. Another one is a god or a goddess known as Kali, which also drank its victims' blood and then wore the limbs around her neck of the people, which is very interesting, and you can actually find that in the Vampire book or the Vampire Encyclopedia by Brad Steger. I believe he wrote that one. I think he wrote that one.
He wrote one similar to it, or some. I can't remember the exact name that it was, but it was the Vampire book or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it wasn't Steger. He did one similar, but actually this one was by Melton. Gordon Melton, I believe his name is.
Oh, Melton Gordon, okay.
Yeah, Melton Gordon. Oh, goodness gracious. It's been a long time since I've talked to him. Yeah, so the one I'm talking about is, Gordon Melton, which is a very, very exhaustive book on vampires, if anyone out there is interested.
Yeah,
it is a really interesting read. Good luck getting through it. I haven't finished it. But there's a lot of cool stuff you want to flip through and find things. It's really good. Now, in regards to the whole Dracula thing, and regarding the Vlad, he was or is by far the most famous vampires or so-called vampires that ever existed. Another one, which Justin, you and I have talked about, I'm sure many people have heard of, is Elizabeth Bathory.
Yep.
And she was a queen, I guess, kind of.
She was a duchess.
A duchess, okay. So she was a duchess who, was, I don't know, not necessarily normal by any means if she became the so-called vampire.
Right.
But one day a servant of hers, a female servant, she only had female servants, did something she didn't like, and she struck her on the face. She struck the female servant. And when she put her hand away, it turned out that her ring, Elizabeth's ring, had cut the servant, which left blood on Elizabeth's hand. And when she wiped the blood away from her, or off her hand, she thought that particular spot that the blood touched her looked younger than the rest of her skin. So, of course, the most noble and understanding thing to do is to go slaughter all the other females and start bathing in their blood. Which, this is by far, if anyone knows anything about that, it's disgusting, the stuff he's done in regards to impaling. The reason they call him Vlad the Impaler.
Right, just in human form, he was a major butcher and monster. So,
yeah. And all considering he was human the entire time, he never really became the vampires that we know of on TV.
Right.
But people considered him a vampire due to his lust for blood shed, in this case, where he would actually eat meals in front of these impaled people as they died. But Elizabeth Bathory, she wouldn't do a number of things other than just cutting girls' wrists open. One in particular is she would had a bathtub, and she would hook girls up to the ceiling where these chains were, and she would hook them up to these chains over the bathtub, head first, like down towards the tub, and she would cut the girls' throats open. And she would sit beneath them and let the blood just pour on top of her, and she'd bathe in their blood as they were bleeding out, basically,
Right.
which is pretty brutal, pretty gross. These poor girls. But luckily, a king nearby did find out eventually, and ended up locking up Elizabeth Bathory in a tower of her own castle, where she did eventually die of starvation, if I'm not mistaken. So thank goodness for that. Come on, we don't need anyone like that around. She deserved it. But yeah, so I mean, those are by far the two most common or most popular or famous vampires, and there are movies based on both of them. I mean, you could pretty much name any Dracula movie for that matter, and it's more or less going to be based on Vlad.
Yeah.
But there is another one. I can't think of the exact name at the moment. It's called something Game.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The one where they were playing the game, and if they died in the game, they died in real life.
Yes.
And that was because of Elizabeth Bathory, right?
Yeah, the whole game was based on Elizabeth Bathory.
Right.
And if you had a rose, that rose could protect you from her. And, of course, it would protect you in real life as well. But, yeah, the whole story is based off of her character. So very interesting. That was by far an interesting movie, I'll just say. It's pretty good for a horror film. But, yeah, I forgot all about that, actually, until now. I want to watch it again.
If you find out the name, text me about it, because I actually had wanted to see it and never did. So.
Okay.
All right, folks. We'll take another quick break here. You're listening to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
I might look like an adult, like a person who could possibly be a parent, but I have no idea how to talk like one. And everyone knows that if you want to be a parent, you have to sound good when you say things like, "Don't make me turn this car around," or "because I said so," or "Don't make me come back there." I don't even really know what those things mean, but I know that I actually believed my parents when they said them to me. How did they manage to sound so convincing? Here we go. "Don't make me come back there." Oh, no, that's not tough enough at all. Kids can sense weakness. "Don't make me come back there." Ooh, yeah, that's better. In fact, that kind of sounded like my dad. Weird.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to listen to you practice your dad voice. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit AdoptUsKids.org for more information. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hello, everybody. Sublimely Elegant here, as always, and guess what? I know you. Well, no, we've never met, but I do know you. I know you love Minecraft. I know you love the internet. Now, I also happen to know you love colorful language. So instead of moping around all day, why don't you head on over to my channel and satiate your deepest needs? YouTube.com/Sublimely Elegant.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location?
In the forest, near the side of the road.
No need for alarm, sir. The forest is where bears live.
But this was no ordinary bear.
No ordinary bear?
Yeah, 1 second, I'm having a smoke taken in the view. Next thing I know, I am face-to-face with Smokey Bear.
Let me guess, Smokey had a tip for you.
He did. He must have seen me toss my cigarette on the ground. He told me never to do that because it only takes one spark to start a wildfire.
He's a smart bear. Did you know that 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans? That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
That's what Smokey said. I had no idea.
That's why Smokey's famous, and you're not.
Good point.
If you see someone in danger of starting a wildfire, step in and make a difference, because 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sublimely Elegant here as always, and you are listening to Paratruth Radio.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And we've been talking about vampires. Dun, dun, dun. And we were just going over some of the most famous vampires. I wanted to go over some vampiric type creatures that go around the world. One in particular is from Africa, from the Ashanti people. It's an iron-toothed, tree-dwelling creature called the Asanbosum, and the U people of the Odzi have the Odzi, which can take form of a firefly and hunt children. Now, if any, yeah, I mean, if anybody knows the vampire legends, most people know that vampires can turn or are said to turn into bats. So the firefly isn't very far-fetched, even though it's very much smaller than a bat. But yeah, there's also one called the Impundulu, which can take the form of a large taloned bird and can summon thunder and lightning. Let's see, the Americas. The only legend that looks like comes up from the Americas is the Lugaru, which actually dates back to the French Lupaguru, which translates to werewolf. In Asia, there's the Buta or the Prate, and it's the soul of a man who died an untimely death. It wanders around animating dead bodies at night, attacking the living, much like a ghoul. In India, there's the Bhamarakshasa, and this is a creature that's vampiric in nature with a head encircled by intestines and a skull from which it drank blood. God, some of these are way worse than the vampire. There are obviously other legends. Let's see, there's one that is from the Philippines called the Mandurugu, or the Visayan Manangal, which translates to self-segmenter. The Mandurugu is a variety of aswang that takes the form of an attractive girl.
What you call me?
An asswang. Of an attractive girl by day and develops wings and a long, hollow, thread-like tongue by night.
Ooh, sounds like any woman I've ever met.
Any ex-girlfriend that is just not the best for you. There's many others. There's many that date back to Asia. There's some that go back to Malaysia. So, I mean, the vampire is actually a very common, or vampire-like creatures are very common legends throughout many cultures. I don't know. Like in all of these, it almost sounds demonic in nature. Which, I mean, if you're coming back from the dead, you have fangs and you're drinking blood. I would hope you're a demon and not some just weirdo off the street. But
right.
As we said, there are people that participate in this bloodletting because they live the life of a living vampire, as they're called. In my opinion, other than demonic influence, that the only other definition of a vampire I would come up with is a living vampire, because people have embraced this thing that was supposed to be feared and turned it into something completely different.
Right. And, and people are out there now, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, with these blood bars and whatnot, or vampiric bars, in which people are, finding whoever and being tested for the blood and being able to drink each other's blood. I mean, it's almost, it's occultic to begin with, but it's become that much more cult-like with this kind of thing going on. which is very interesting because here, now that we have all these people drinking blood and stuff, and a lot of people say the Bible doesn't cover everything, but it does. It really does, and sometimes it's hidden, sometimes it's right in your face, but it's all in there. And in regards to vampirism, this will go along with it. This is Leviticus chapter 17, verse 10 to 12. I'm going to go ahead and read this real quick. If any native Israelite or foreigner living among you eats or drinks blood in any form, I will turn against that person and cut them off from the community of your people. For the life of the blood is in its blood. I have given you the blood on the altar to purify you, making you right with the Lord. That right there is a representation to Christ dying for our sins. Continued, it is the blood given in exchange for a life that makes purification possible. That is why I have said to the people of Israel, you must never eat or drink blood, neither you nor your foreigners living among you. This particular chapter, God is talking about, or is talking to the Israelites and any foreigners living among them. Now, these scriptures are in the Old Testament were specifically driven towards Israel at the time, those who came out of the Exodus from Egypt. But it goes along with anyone who's become a Christian since then, because as Christians, we become God's people as Israelites. He sees us in the same light. And so this is very strict, coming from the creator of the universe, that we should never drink blood of another living creature, whether human or animal, because blood is a representation of its life force. Without blood in its body, they die. And so seeing that blood is so sacred within us, to drink something as such would be such a sin against God. It's as if taking his life from him and just, throwing it away in a sense. It was very interesting here because I know a lot of people, especially anyone who's into the vampire thing, they'll be like, oh, but God gave us blood on the altar to purify us. So if we drink it, then we're purified. And then it continues saying, and the blood is given in exchange for a life that makes purification possible. So we have to, give a life in order to become pure. But it's very important, like so many people don't understand that this here was regarding animal sacrifices at the time that God would allow them to do so that they would be cleansed of their sin. But it is also foretelling of Jesus Christ coming and dying for us on the cross. So that's not saying that someone should just go out and sacrifice somebody and, hey, you're good to go. It's already been done, and it was specific that God himself would come down and do it and die for us. So that's what that particular passage is telling us and commanding us to refrain from drinking blood, which, as we have already talked about, many people have strayed from such teachings and beliefs and commands.
Well, one legend that I don't know if it's in the Bible or not, but I've heard this legend a couple of times of the one Greek or Roman guard who is standing underneath the cross after Christ was crucified and catches the last drop of blood that drops from him and then drinks it. Is that in the Bible?
He doesn't drink it. You are referring to the Roman guard. There's a Roman guard there. All right, there comes a point where the earthquake happens after Christ dies. Christ says, I commit my spirit to you, O Lord. And that's when he dies. Well, at that particular moment, there was basically a time on people being crucified. They had to die at a certain time because they weren't allowed to be left on the crosses when going into the Passover, I think, at that time. Can't remember. They had to be off, though, by Friday night.
Okay.
And so in order to get them to die faster, they would break the knees of those that were being crucified, so that way they would not be able to pull themselves up to catch air, so they would slowly suffocate to death.
Okay.
Christ, on the other hand, the Roman guards told them to kill him, and they put a spear into his side. And when they pulled it out, blood and water flowed out, and it sprayed this person on the face, basically. And he fell to his knees because it proved that right there, that when Jesus committed his spirit, he actually, basically what he commanded happened, proving that he was God. And they realized, oh, we just crucified God himself. Like, what did we do? And that blood was a representation of him being purified of his sins and being forgiven of his sins.
Oh.
And many people question the whole, water and blood flowed from him. There is a book out, I can't remember who wrote it, but it's called The Case for Easter. It's a very short book. I literally read it in a couple of hours and was done.
I think I actually still have that book.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into great detail to the things that happen to the body when it's severely abused and goes through this traumatic state. And it's not necessarily truly water, but it's almost as if it is water in regards to the liquidity or whatever it is. So it really, in a sense, was blood and water flowing from Christ's body, which was
that's just how the Bible worded it. That's not necessarily exactly what it was. It's just how they had to word, or how they felt they could word it to describe it.
And this book is just amazing because the guy who wrote this book was an atheist before doing the research to prove that none of this in the scripture is true. He's trying to prove that Christ's death wasn't real. And through all of his research, he ended up learning that it was all real. And he became a Christian and wrote, completed this book. And it's just an amazing account of what truly happened to Christ's body and the things that the Bible tells us in regards to like blood coming, like pouring, like blood drops on Christ's forehead, for example, when he's praying. There is a symptom in which you pray so fervently or you become so stressed that blood actually starts to come out of your pores.
Right. You don't have to be praying per se just from stress. It can happen, right?
Right. So it's just everything that the Bible says happened is proven in this book to be real. And if anyone gets a chance, whether you're a believer or not a believer, check it out. It's an interesting read. You don't have to believe it, but it's something you might think about. It's pretty cool.
Well, even if you're not a believer, even when I considered myself atheist, I still liked reading through the Bible and reading through Christian stories because they're very heartfelt at times. There's a little bit of clarity throughout most books that you'll read through Christian writers. It just kind of warms your heart a little bit, even if you're not a true believer. So I think that even if you're whatever faith you are, if you don't believe anything, read some of the books that we're talking about, whether it's our paranormal books that we have our guests on for, or as Eric brought up, the case. Is it the case of Easter?
The case for Easter.
For Easter. So check out some of these books. We are getting close to the end of the show, so we're going to let you guys know that next week we'll be talking about the Mothman. Week after that, we're going to be taking a week break, doing a show as long as doing the other things that Eric and I do on a daily basis. Kind of becomes a strain sometimes, so we'll be taking a break not next week, but the following week. And then the week after that is our Halloween episode, which I always love. So I'll have to get some Halloween-y sound effects for us to play with. And just to let you guys know, too, our Indiegogo campaign is ending tomorrow. If you haven't donated, check it out. We are trying to improve our show for you, our listeners. So if you feel the urge to donate, there are some pretty amazing giveaways on there. We only have met.
Sorry, just trying to throw it in there.
We've only met 1% of our campaign goal, and the two people. Yeah. Where is it? Game over. I'll have to say that next episode if we don't meet our goal. And the two people that have donated will be mentioned again next episode once the campaign ends, and be getting their perks, as it's called on Indiegogo. So go to Indiegogo.com, type in Paratruth Radio, you'll find it. And the perks range from $10 to $250, but you can donate $5 if you want to. Unfortunately, there's no perks for $5, but any amount will help us reach our goal. So definitely check that out. And I think that's all we've got for you this week, folks. So
pretty much. I do want to mention two things real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first one, the movie we were talking about earlier, the game one, it is called Stay Alive.
Oh, Stay Alive.
It's called Stay Alive. The subtitle, more or less, is Die in the Game, Die in Real Life.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that's the movie. And as for the Case for Easter, for any of you who are interested in checking it out, it is authored by Lee Strobel. And make it a little easier to find that book by typing in that author's name as well. But if you do type in The Case for Easter in Google, Lee Strobel's book will show up. So Amazon paperback is $39.42, Kindle for $1.99. So, yeah.
That might be somebody to look into as a guest, too, because he would be an interesting one, seeing as he was an atheist, and that one little bit of research, I shouldn't say little bit, but the research that he did converted him. So that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Talk.
We should definitely look into that.
All right, folks.
He got a ton of books out, so.
Does he? Okay, I'll look into it then. All right, folks. That is it for us this week. We'll see you guys next week, same time, same channel. My name's Justin.
And I'm Eric.
And we will see you next week.
Peace.